Mr. Secretary, if you were Secretary of Defense today, I'm curious about how you would be advising the president about escalation risk. General Milley likes to talk about how we're crossing the river stone to stone, meaning it's slippery, it's uncertain. You don't know where the next step leads you, and thus it's necessary to be careful. As you evaluate these risks, I sense that you're somewhat more risk tolerant than the president and urging him to move a little bit more quickly. Is that correct? And again, how would you advise him if he turned to you and said, let's talk about escalation danger?
I think that's a fair statement. I actually think in terms of their support for Ukraine, the administration has done a good job. I think that they have uh, they've supported and provided an extraordinary amount of military equipment to Ukraine over time. But I think, every step of the way, we've worried about those red lines, and what we have seen consistently is that as long as we are providing material that does not allow Ukraine to attack targets inside Russia, Putin has been pretty reluctant to escalate in any significant way. And you also have to ask the question: what does escalation mean? Does escalation mean mobilizing another 500,000 troops, which he is basically on the road to doing? Or is escalation meaning using weapons of mass destruction? I think that's so self-destructive for Russia that that's not in the cards, at least a very low probability. So what kind of escalation are we expecting, or do we think is possible on the part of the Russians that they have not already done? And so I think particularly when we're talking about the kind of ground equipment we've talked about, when we're talking about defensive uh, uh, missiles and materiel to help the Ukrainians defend themselves against Russian missiles and so on. I just don't. I think the administration's been kind of a half a step behind the Congress, actually, which had many members, both Republicans and Democrats, have pressed for a somewhat more aggressive approach in terms of the weapons that we've been providing. I think the administration has done the right things along the way, but I think they could have done some of them more quickly.